Welcome, curious minds. Do you believe in the existence of giants? Did you know that in Mexico, Hernan Cortés was shown the bones of colossal humans, and that the biblical Goliath wasn't as tall as commonly believed? Back in the year 1519, when Hernan Cortés was in the territory of the Tlaxcaltecs, with whom he established an alliance, they told him that in ancient times, their ancestors had fought against giants, a race of very tall men and women with large bones whom they had killed because they were evil. At least, that's what Bernal Díaz del Castillo, one of the men who accompanied Cortés on that expedition, claimed. In his work titled The True History of the Conquest of New Spain, Díaz del Castillo wrote the following: "So that we might see what sizes and tall bodies they had, they brought a bone or shin bone of one of them, and it was very thick, as tall as a man of reasonable stature, and that shin bone was from the knee to the hip. I measured myself with it, and it was as tall as I. And they brought other pieces of bones like the first, but they were already eaten and decayed by the earth, and we were all amazed to see those shin bones, and we believed there had been giants in this land, and our captain Cortés told us that it would be good to send that great bone to Castile for his majesty to see." Alongside dragons, one of the most universal mythological creatures is the giant, a being with an anthropomorphic appearance but colossal size. Since the dawn of human civilizations, many cultures have stories about giants. We find them in the Bible, Norse mythology, Greek mythology, British traditions, the beliefs of the Paiute Indians in the Rocky Mountains, Japan, Mexico, Bulgaria, Argentina, Chile. In most cases, they are described as beings from a distant past and now extinct, either due to a natural catastrophe, divine punishment, or human action. And there are quite a few who claim to have found evidence of their existence. But let's start at the beginning, with the earliest written mentions of giants, which were recorded in cuneiform script by the Sumerians. This people lived in the southern part of Mesopotamia, between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, over 5,000 years ago. In the Epic of Gilgamesh, a literary work whose origins date back to 2100 BCE and which we've covered in a dedicated video, the protagonist, King Gilgamesh of Uruk, the son of a goddess and a priest, is described as a person of colossal height, exceeding 5 meters in equivalent, and it is implied that his faithful companion in adventures, Enkidu, had a similar size. It is possible that Gilgamesh's description was merely a literary means to emphasize his importance as a hero or to justify his ability to undertake great deeds, such as the construction of the massive walls of the city of Uruk. However, in that story, a malevolent giant named Humbaba, who breathes fire and guards the cedar forest, also appears. Therefore, in this epic, the oldest known to date, we see the two primary roles that humanity has assigned to giants in its cultural manifestations, that of the hero whose semi-divine origin justifies their great physical height, and that of the horrific adversary whose size terrifies humans and highlights their fragility by comparison. The Bible also mentions giants. The beginning of Genesis chapter 6 says the following: "When men began to multiply on the face of the land and daughters were born to them, the sons of God saw that the daughters of man were attractive. And they took as their wives any they chose." The Nephilim were on the earth in those days, and also afterward when the sons of God came into the daughters of man and they bore children to them. These were the mighty men who were of old, the men of renown. These verses may vary slightly depending on the Bible version you consult. We've taken them from the contemporary Reina Valera version. But the question most people ask when they read them is, who are these sons of God mentioned? Because it's clear they are not human, as they are said to have taken the daughters of men as wives. Various beliefs exist about them: angels who rebelled against God and left heaven to live on earth, demons, fallen spirits. Generally, they are considered to be evil beings, although there is debate about their specific nature. However, what interests us in today's video are their descendants, these giants they conceived with human women. Originally, most of the Old Testament was written in Hebrew, and in that language, the fragment we just read used a word transliterated into English as Nephilim. You've probably heard of it because there's been much talk lately about the Book of Enoch, a topic we might delve into more deeply in a future video. The point is, in the translations of the popular Hebrew original, like the Vulgate, that word was translated as giants. In other words, where we said giants, the original text had Nephilim. However, many scholars believe that the correct translation of Nephilim would not be giants, but the fallen, or the ones who fall. In either case, the word Nephilim would not provide any information about the size of these beings, as the word giants does. Therefore, perhaps the Bible was not talking about giants in Genesis. Nevertheless, in other parts of the Bible, giants are mentioned, such as the case of the very famous Goliath. Although he was only between 216 and 258 centimeters tall, if we go by the measurement of 4 cubits and a span as indicated in the Septuagint, the oldest surviving Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible. The Jewish Roman historian from the 1st century, Flavius Josephus, also stated that Goliath was that height, just like the Dead Sea Scrolls. By the way, in case you're wondering, the tallest man in recorded history according to the Guinness World Records was the American Robert Wadlow, born in 1918. He was 8 feet and 11 inches tall, and he weighed 487 pounds. His extraordinary height was due to an overactive pituitary gland, and his growth never stopped. It's likely that had he lived longer, he would have reached even greater heights, but at only 22 years old, he suffered a blister on his ankle that became infected and ultimately led to his death from septicemia. Returning to legends, an interesting case of a positive giant comes from the 5th century Armenian historian Movses Koronatsi in his work, History of the Armenians, where he gathered various popular legends about the origins of the Armenian nation. One of them speaks of Haik, a giant man described as handsome and friendly, with curly hair, bright eyes, and strong arms, a powerful archer and fearless warrior. Haik and his people, the Armenians, who were descendants of Noah, migrated to the warm lands of Babylon, where the evil giant Bel ruled and attempted to tyrannize Haik's people. But Haik led his people to the land near Mount Ararat and founded a village that would become the center of the ancient kingdom of Armenia. Later, in a battle near Lake Van, Bel's army clashed with Haik's people in a great battle, during which Haik managed to end the life of the evil giant with an arrow shot from a great distance. In this way, the Armenians were able to prosper, and Haik passed into memory as the legendary patriarch and founder of the Armenian nation. Now, let's talk about the giants from whom we inherited the word giant, the ones from Greek mythology. In the primordial myths, as recorded by Hesiod in his Theogony, The giants were the children of Uranus and Gaia, personifications of the sky and the earth. Their mother, Gaia, incited them to attack Mount Olympus and confront the gods residing there to gain supremacy over the cosmos. This battle, known as the Gigantomachy, tilted in favor of the Olympians when Heracles, also known as Hercules by the Romans, joined the side of the gods. Defeated, the giants were imprisoned underground, and they occasionally shake the earth, causing earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. However, those giants, the Gigantes, were not the only giants. Because there had been other giants before them, who, despite not being called giants, were also massive anthropomorphic beings. We're talking about the earliest offspring of Uranus and Gaia, the Titans, the Cyclopes, and the Hecatoncheirs. Similar to the Gigantes in their Gigantomachy, the Titans also battled the gods of Olympus in the Titanomachy. And like their younger siblings, the Titans were defeated and imprisoned in the depths of the earth, in Tartarus. The similarities between both stories lead many, including some ancient Greek poets, to mix or confuse the giants with the Titans. Less known are the enormous Hecatoncheirs, also known as the 100-handed ones because they had 100 arms in addition to 50 heads. According to Hesiod, there were 3 of them, named Cottus, Briareus, and Gyges. They also participated in the Titanomachy, but they fought on the side of Zeus and the Olympians. Their involvement was crucial in the defeat of their older siblings, the Titans, and after the battle, they became their jailers, guarding the gates of Tartarus. The Cyclopes, on the other hand, were easily recognizable by having a single eye located in the middle of their foreheads. Although various authors, such as Strabo, Hesiod, and Homer, narrated the existence of different Cyclopes, undoubtedly the most famous one today is Polyphemus, thanks to the Odyssey. In this epic, Homer recounted the journey of Odysseus, also known as Ulysses in Latin, to return home after the Trojan War. In Book 9, he and his men arrived on the island of the Cyclopes and entered a massive cave where they found an abundance of food and held a feast. Of course, it was the dwelling of Polyphemus, who had gone out with his sheep to graze. Upon his return to the cave, he blocked the entrance with a large stone and ate half a dozen of Odysseus's men, until Odysseus had the idea to get him drunk by offering him a very strong wine he had received at the beginning of his journey. Inebriated by alcohol, Polyphemus asked Odysseus his name to eat him last as a token of gratitude for the wine. Odysseus replied that his name was Autis, which can be translated as nobody or no man. When the Cyclops fell asleep from drunkenness, the Greek hero heated a large stake in the fire and drove it into Polyphemus's single eye, blinding him. Polyphemus woke up screaming in pain and called out to other Cyclopes on the island for help. Some of them approached the entrance of the cave and asked him, "Why so angry, Polyphemus? Has any man mistreated you or done you violence by fraud, or in any other way?" The blind Cyclops replied, "Nobody has tricked me, nobody has hurt me by force." So, the other Cyclopes advised him to pray to Neptune to alleviate his suffering and departed. The next morning, Polyphemus moved the rock blocking the cave so his sheep could go out to graze, carefully feeling each of them to ensure that only the sheep and not his prisoners came out. However, Odysseus had his men hide under the bellies of the large rams tied together in threes, and they all managed to escape. Folklore specialists have identified over 200 different versions of the Polyphemus tale across 25 countries around the world: England, Portugal, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, Iceland, Russia, Korea. How is this possible? Perhaps Homer's Odyssey is a work so universal that it has influenced popular tales from such distant places. Most contemporary scholars do not believe this to be the case. They think that all these different legends about a giant, cannibal shepherd who captures a group of humans reflect traditions that predate Homer's time. In other words, the Greek poet borrowed them from very ancient stories. The ancient Greeks and Romans had practical reasons to believe in the existence of cyclopes since they could find some cyclops skulls on Mediterranean islands, such as Sicily or Crete. In those times, if you had never seen an elephant in your life and you came across a massive skull like this, with a large hole in the middle, how could you imagine it was a trunk rather than a big eye? Wouldn't it be easier to think that the cyclopes from the legends you've heard truly existed? On the island of Sicily, there lived a kind of dwarf elephant, now extinct, known as Paleoloxodon falconeri, better known as the dwarf mammoth or the Sicilian mammoth. Their enormous bones and fossilized skulls can still be found today on eroded slopes and cliffs. In the island of Crete, they found fossil remains of Adeinotherium giganteum, Adeinotherium, another ancient relative of the modern elephant. From our current perspective, it's easy to recognize these as animal bones. But the ancient Greeks believed that the massive bones they found were remnants of giants, and any non-human feature was attributed to the grotesque anatomical characteristics of giants. In ancient times, the people of Tingis, present-day Tanya in Morocco, claimed that the founder of their city was a giant named Antaeus, who was buried in a mound to the south of the city after Hercules defeated him in hand-to-hand combat. Legend has it that, to verify the claim, the Roman Quintus Sertorius ordered his men to dig into the mound in 81 BC, and to their surprise, they found a massive skeleton, which they then reburied with great honors. Fossils of ancient elephants are common in that area. Could it be related to that legend? In South America, in Patagonia, the native Tehuelche people were of great stature, and Ferdinand Magellan called them Patagones because of their height and the assumption that they had large feet. This is why the region became known as Patagonia. While they were believed to be giants, they were probably exaggerations. Although the Tehuelche people may have measured around 2 meters, a height much greater than that of Europeans in the 16th century. Charles Darwin, in the 19th century, provided a more precise description of their height. In other parts of South America, such as Caldera in northern Chile and the Huasco Valley, there are legends of giants playing with ships and mythical cities that appear and disappear in the middle of the night. These legends often involve mining giants and princesses, and it's said that those who can observe the giants while they work will have good luck in the rest of their lives. In Norse mythology, there is talk of a race of giants that constantly rivaled the gods. They were the Jotnar, representatives of primordial chaos and the untamed force of nature. Each time the gods defeated them, it symbolized the triumph of human culture over the wild. However, those giants had their own world, Jotunheim, while humans lived in Midgard. There were also the fire giants, who, in turn, lived in the world called Muspelheim. Therefore, although giants occasionally visited other realms and had long and detailed genealogies, there is no assertion in the older Norse mythology that giants populated the earth in a distant time before humanity. Giants, gods, and humans each had their own habitat, although they occasionally interacted. A different matter altogether is the trolls, who in later Scandinavian folklore, post-Norse mythology, are described as giants living in the midst of nature, in remote places, far from humans, whom they posed a threat to, especially for Christians. According to some versions, trolls could smell the blood of those who had been baptized and would devour them. The characteristics of trolls vary greatly from one account to another, although they are often described as old, gigantic beings, very strong but slow and dim-witted, who can turn into stone if exposed to sunlight. They find the ringing of church bells unbearable, which is why they stay away from human settlements and occasionally throw large stones to destroy newly built churches. Another European region rich in legends of pre-Christian giants is the Basque Country. The Gentilak, for example, were beings of superhuman strength who lived in the mountains and could hurl enormous boulders over great distances. They are credited with building dolmens and other megalithic structures in the area. An old story goes that one day, the Gentilak saw a strange light in the sky and went to the oldest among them to ask what it might be. The wise elder replied, "It is the light heralding the birth of Kixme," a term the Gentilak used to refer to Christ. He continued, "The end of our race has come, throw me down that precipice over there." The other Gentilak did as he requested, and then they retreated underground. In Basque mythology, we also find Tartalo, a very aggressive, cannibalistic cyclops who lives in the mountains and feeds on sheep and humans. It might remind you of a character we've discussed before. There were also giants in Bulgarian foundational myths, specifically beings called Ispolini. Legend has it that the first humans created by God to inhabit the earth were dwarfs. However, due to their small stature, they couldn't defend themselves against wild animals and disappeared. So, God created the Ispolini, making them 3 meters tall, with enormous heads and a single eye the size of an egg on their foreheads. Yes, here we find a kind of cyclops again. The Ispolini lived in caves within ancient mountains and were carnivorous. They frequently fought against dragons, their bitter enemies. However, they had an even more fearsome rival, blackberries. As they were very tall, a bit clumsy, and their single eye didn't offer proper depth perception, they often stumbled into blackberry bushes, got entangled in their thorns, and perished. So, God, realizing that this new creature also wasn't the right size to survive on Earth, decided to exterminate them and created humans. Farther east, in Japan, there's the figure of Daidorobochi, a giant-sized yokai, a supernatural being capable of moving mountains. In North America, the oral tradition of the Northern Paiute tribe, native to the Great Basin region in the United States, tells of the Saitiikar, a legendary tribe of red-haired, cannibalistic giants who the Paiute fought and managed to exterminate. As you can see, there are legends about giants in every corner of the planet, and we've left many out to avoid making this video too lengthy. But now, the crucial question: did giants really exist at some point in the past? A few years ago, in the Ethiopian region of Hala, the remains of a city dating back to the 10th century BC were found, constructed with enormous stone blocks. Locals believed that this city was the work of giants, although archaeologists only found human skeletons of standard size there. However, they did find artifacts from India, Egypt, and China, demonstrating that it was an important trade center. This is one of the most common reasons why people may think that giants existed. We look at colossal monuments created by ancient civilizations and, not understanding how they were built, imagine massive, intelligent beings capable of stacking huge stones as if they were Lego pieces. The spectacular Giant's Causeway on the northeast coast of Ireland consists of about 40,000 interlocking basalt rock columns. According to Gaelic mythology, the Irish giant Finn McCool built the causeway to walk from his island to Scotland and fight the Scottish giant Benandonna. However, when McCool saw from a distance how enormous Benandonna was, he became frightened and returned to Ireland. Shortly afterward, the Scottish giant decided to use the new causeway built by McCool to travel to Ireland and confront him. McCool's wife, to protect her husband, disguised him as a baby and told Benandonna that the child was McCool's, who was away. What happened next? Benandonna, terrified at the thought of the size of the father who had sired such a massive baby, returned to Scotland and destroyed the giant's causeway in his path to prevent McCool from following him to his land. Hence, the causeway no longer connects Ireland to Scotland and presents its current appearance. In reality, formations like these are often the result of volcanic activity. About 65 million years ago, lava flowed over the area. As the lava cooled, it contracted and fractured into the columns visible today. But it must be admitted that the version of the giants wanting to fight is much more entertaining. In Mexico, the mystery surrounding the construction of the city of Teotihuacan is related to the myth of the Quinametzin, a race of giant humans supposedly responsible for building the city of Teotihuacan. Specialists still debate the origins of the city, but it is estimated that the earliest large structures found there date back to approximately the 2nd century BC, so they may not be old enough to suspect a pre-human origin. According to Mexican mythology, the Quinametzin lived during the 3rd cosmogonic era and perished when the god Quetzalcoatl made it rain fire upon the earth. The only humans who survived were transformed into birds. And what about the Egyptian pyramids? Many people still believe that they were not built by humans, and various rumors circulate about a race of giant builders or that the ancient pharaohs were giants. But so far, no evidence has been found to support such legends. The tallest known pharaoh to date is Sanecht, who measured 1.87 meters in height. He was undoubtedly tall for his time, but certainly did not exceed human standards. Another primary reason why humans have believed in giants is the discovery of fossils from prehistoric megafauna. As we mentioned when discussing Cyclops, large animal remains were found in antiquity that, due to lack of understanding, were associated with giants. The Roman writer Pliny, for example, described the skeleton of a giant found in Crete after an earthquake. Perhaps it was the remains of a Deinotherium, but Pliny deduced that over time, giant beings like that had been gradually reduced to human size, suggesting they could be our ancestors. Another prehistoric animal whose bones may have given rise to ancient myths about giants is the Gigantopithecus blacki, the largest hominoid primate that ever existed. It could grow over 3 meters tall and weigh half a ton. It already inhabited the forests of China, India, and Vietnam over 2 million years ago, and it's possible that it coexisted with Homo erectus in Southeast Asia. The reasons for its extinction are unknown, but its bones could easily have been confused with those of an unusually large human race. In summary, there is no scientific evidence to suggest that any race of anthropomorphic giants existed at any point in history or prehistory. However, the cultural heritage related to giants, found in nearly every civilization around the world, is undeniable. So, could there be some truth in all these myths and legends? Perhaps in the future, a new anthropological discovery will shed more light on the subject. Until then, each of us will have to draw our own conclusions. And what about you? What do you think about the possibility of giants having existed? You probably know some other stories about giants that we haven't included in the video. Please share them in the comments below. And if you want to learn more interesting stories, subscribe to our channel. Thank you very much for being curious minds. See you in the next video.